Good morning, everybody. We're going to begin the program in a couple of minutes. Before that, I'd like to share with you some videos from our sponsors today. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Just a question. What if the smartest decision was to invest in the planet?
What does the planet have to do with us?
We do business.
Yes, but there's more than one way of doing business. Let's go for a walk. Ready? Some businesses know that the future is in producing clean energy. For some companies, it's as clear as water. You wouldn't believe that this is purified and desalinated water. Hey, nobody said it was easy. Some businesses know the answer is blowing in the wind. Not bad, eh? You'll like it even more when we tell you how many tons of pollution we avoided dumping into the air. Some may think this is a very unusual way of doing business. Maybe it is, but it's our way of doing business.
SM Investments is one of the largest Philippine conglomerates. We've been around for over 60 years. We have 3 core businesses, mainly retailing, banking, and properties. Over the past 60 plus years, sustainability is something which SM has had as a culture. It's something which we as a group has been practicing from the very beginning. We take into account the entire impact on the environment, including, let's say, providing sustainable energy, renewable solar powers, water treatment facilities, and waste recycling. We also provide, like for example, for our malls, we make the malls more like a community center, which also then becomes like an area for relief effort if ever there's any sort of calamity that occurs. We also provide support in terms of education and training and healthcare, because at the end of the day, it's the sustainability of the community that continues to provide the growth for our businesses.
Sabi nila pababa na raw ang bansa. Sabi nila napag-iiwanan na tayo. Sabi nila kaawa-awa naman daw tayo. Ngunit kaya ba ng inay ng kanilang sabi-sabi ang kitang-kitang pagbabago? Ang lakas ng ating kalooban. Ang tigas ng ating paninindigan. Ang suporta natin sa bayan na singtibay ng bakan. Steel Asia, ang tibay ng Pilipino.
Good morning again. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Coco Alcuaz, Executive Director at Makati Business Club. Welcome to this first session of F2F with Cabinet Secretaries, our series, a partnership with Acciona, SM Investments, and Steel Asia. Thank you as well to our media partners, ANC and Business World. Thank you to all of you who came here today and thank you very much for arriving early. We're glad you had a chance to speak. We did get a notice, as we told you, that the secretary may have to leave earlier than expected. So I'm going to rush through this so we can get quickly to the secretary. So thanks for coming early. For those of you joining us by Zoom, if you would turn on your cameras and give us a wave right about now. I see former Ambassador Stephen Robinson on the upper left-hand side. Ambassador, thanks for joining us all the way from Australia, and other friends as well of MBC. Thank you very much for joining us. For those here in the room, if you have questions later, please raise your hands, and my colleagues Bianca over here and Gita over somewhere will go to you with the microphone. For those of you who are on Zoom, please write your questions in the Zoom box, and my colleague Bettina over there will read it out for you. As well, we'd like to say hello to our attendees on FB Live. Okay, in this first session of our Cabinet Secretary series, we're pleased to be joined by Department of Finance Secretary Ben Diokno. Secretary Diokno will discuss achievements of the first 6 months, the better than expected GDP report last week, and the work needed to turn an optimistic outlook into reality. The format will be slightly different from our usual. After our chairman, Mr. Chua, does the welcome and introductory remarks, we'll go straight to the interview and Q&A. So please, if you have questions, please send them in early already or be ready to raise your hand for that. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of some of our board members who are here today. If it's okay, could I ask the board members to stand? And I'll introduce you. Lito Tayag over here. Jaime Augusto, our vice chairman, our chairman, Ed Chua. Risa, is that you in the back? I thought you weren't attending. Please come forward. Oh, you're okay. Risa Mantaring at the back. With that, please allow me to turn over to our chairman, Ed Chua, for the welcome and introductory remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coco. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making time to come here, and welcome to the first installment of the Face-to-Face with CABSEX. This is one of MBC's ways to deepen public-private dialogue and collaboration. We believe that efforts such as this are important because government and business must be partners working for the common goal of national development. Government's role is to provide the enabling environment, infrastructure, peace and order, laws and regulations to encourage investment, access to quality healthcare and education. Meanwhile, we in the private sector invest and create jobs, provide goods and services, and work with government to stimulate economic growth. That's why as soon as President Marcos was elected, we sought meetings with his key officials, and we started every meeting by asking, what can we do to help? We have provided a number of agencies with specific asks since then. We met our speaker, Finance Secretary Diokno, on June 20, even before the president was inaugurated. And it is fitting that we kick off this series with him because the Finance Secretary is first among equals in the economic team. The Secretary Diokno is first among equals in other ways. He's the only Finance Secretary who has been Budget Secretary and BSP Governor. These are arguably the three most important jobs in the economic team. One who collects the money, another who allocates the money, and the third who makes sure money is available. He's worked for 4 presidents, Presidents Cory Aquino, Joseph Estrada, Rodrigo Duterte, and now Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Under the Aquino and Estrada administrations, he contributed to key policy wins such as the 1986 tax reform program to simplify the income tax system and introduce value-added tax, the 1991 Local Government Code of the Philippines and procurement reform. He returned to the DBM in 2016 under President Duterte, but had been appointed to the BSP by the time the pandemic hit. In the face of lockdowns, the BSP was instrumental in clearing the way for more electronic banking and e-wallets, as well as lending the government over 500 billion pesos. Last year, he took on the formidable task of heading the DOF and the economic team. Under his lead, the new administration made quick, much welcome fixes to BOT rules and work from home for BPOs, among others. But we know there are continuing and new challenges, not just for the Philippines, but for the global economy. In the face of all this, he remains optimistic about our growth and resilience, a faith supported by last year's GDP growth figures. Secretary, growth and resilience are messages that resonate with this crowd, who are raring to invest and create jobs. We look forward to hearing your vision, your plan, and how we can help. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Secretary Ben Diokno, and Coco, I'd like to call you here in the stage to manage the Q&A.
Thanks very much. Like I said, we'll have a little bit different format. Secretary, if you could wait a second, and Mr. Chua, we're going to take a photo of the whole crowd from here. Where's our photographer? And then I'll call up Secretary. Secretary, if you would join me. So like I said, if you have any questions, please raise your hands and one of my colleagues will go to you. If you're watching on Zoom, please type it in the chat box and Bettina will read it out for you later on. Before we turn to the audience, Secretary, maybe a couple of questions from me. This president is keeping you traveling a lot. Obviously, we've come from a president who did less of that, plus there was COVID. I guess my first question is, do you like all this traveling? I know you just came from the Europe, and it was not just Davos, but Frankfurt and London, and then you're off to Japan next week.
Admittedly, I like it because I get to rest while on the plane. But unfortunately, there are lots of things to be done at the office, so I got mixed feelings. But the job has to be done, and I have no complaint.
Secretary, as our chairman mentioned, you've held these three big jobs over the last 20 plus years. Could you tell us which you like the most, or why you like this the most, if that's indeed the case?
I don't get to choose my job. Quite frankly, yes. Do we have what is called the Development Budget Coordination Committee? And what is that? That's the Budget Secretary, that's the NEDA, that's the Department of Finance Secretary, and of course, BSP. So I've held 3 of the 4 jobs, right? So I'm Mr. DBCC myself, right? So no, but quite frankly, I don't choose my job. But I'll give you a story. During Duterte's term, I was a member of a medium-sized bank, and I got a call, and it's Bongo, right? And he said, Mr. Secretary, if you're offered a job, will you accept? Yes, I said yes. I didn't ask what job. That's because I feel that as budget secretary, I can do any job, okay, in the government. So I don't choose my job. I just choose. I feel at ease with any assignment given to me. Thank you. Except maybe defense secretary. That's I don't have that. Or PNP, right?
Even under the Duterte administration, you would accompany the other economic managers on these trips. Could you tell us how different the reception is now under President Marcos? And kudos to you for the great timing of releasing of the first quarter results coming out while you were traveling abroad, Secretary.
There's a big contrast between President Duterte and President Bongbong. I think President Duterte is more like he really is focused on peace and order, and he assigned the economic affairs to his economic team, right? And he doesn't want to travel abroad. Okay, maybe he traveled to he went to Russia. I remember that. Okay. But he didn't stay there for more than 24 hours because there was this Marawi incident. So he has to come back right away. I remember that because I was one of the OIC in Manila. I didn't travel with him. I was with Maynard, Guevara, and myself and another person. Okay. So President Duterte is not as engaging as President Bongbong with the world, with the rest of the world. For example, he didn't care too much about Europe, because Europe was, putting pressure on us on human rights, etc. So anything about Europe doesn't want to deal with that, right? So he didn't even go to the US, not once during the entire year. So compared to Bongbong, Bongbong is more engaging with the rest of the world. Okay, so he has traveled how many times? 7 times?
That's our count. Yeah.
All right. Yes, he's more engaging than President Duterte. I'm not saying that he's not as effective as is more effective than Duterte, because apparently Duterte has the reputation of being the only president who left office and is still very popular. His approval rating was very high for somebody who's leaving office, okay, compared with any other president, even with any president in the world, okay. So that's the difference between the two, okay.
Thanks very much. Like I said, we don't have too much time, so I'll turn to the audience for any questions. Please raise your hand, and one of my colleagues will come to you. Anyone? I see one over there. Please introduce yourself, your company, and please keep the question short.
Okay, I'll try my best. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Secretary. Thank you for good morning, everybody. I'm Yukiko. I'm a partner at Bain & Company. We opened an office in Manila last year, and I moved from Japan. I'm native in Japan. My question to you, Secretary, is a bit futuristic, but potentially quite important. It's around the decarbonization path in Philippines. I understand that Philippines has published a goal to really move on solar and renewable in a very near future, actually quite aggressive plan, I must say, compared to the historical trend. If you look at US, EU, and other advanced economies, they are putting a lot of investment from the government budget, also putting a lot of regulation to encourage the investment in solar and energy. I understand that in Philippines, maybe there's not much ground to it yet, that those may come in the future. So I wanted to get your perspective on what are the sort of pathway to ensure there's going to be an investment and also a quite healthy return for the business to actually make those moves in the future for the decarbonization for Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. To me, that is really the most important policy that we have to grapple with moving forward. Okay, of course, the economy that's easy. At least as I'm concerned, I think we can grow at 6.5 to 8%, but the major constraint will be energy. Okay, but at the same time, it's not just energy. We are also involved in the transition from coal to renewable energy. I think the past administration made a commitment to reduce emission by 75% by a certain year. That's very ambitious, okay? And in fact, there's an ADB loan right now, I think it's technical assistance, which involve both Indonesia and the Philippines for decarbonization. The contrast between Indonesia and the Philippines is that energy is in Indonesia is a state affair. The government owns most of the, practically all, right? But in the Philippines, it's private sector led. Okay, so that's the challenge. Okay, and fortunately, there is a recent Supreme Court decision which says that renewable energy can now be entered into by foreign investors. 100%, okay, 100%. So we're talking of solar, wind, ocean energy, etc. Even I would consider geothermal as renewable energy because you just use the system. Okay, so that's where we are. We are encouraging investment in those areas, and I'm the head of the Fiscal Incentives Review Board. If you need incentives, I'll give you incentives. Okay.
Is that a promise, Secretary?
That's a promise. Yes, that's a promise. Yes.
Next question. There's one in table 4. Introduce yourself and your company. Keep it short, please. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, former professor and secretary.
I gather there's many here who would, yeah, I know there's quite a few here who said that.
Sorry, I'm Abby Casanova. I'm from SB Finance. We're part of Security Bank, but we serve the mass market, so the lower income segment and the small business people. My question is, this is the market that really bears the brunt of price increase and inflation. So my question is, have we peaked on the inflation, and are there fiscal policies that the government is doing to control the rising prices? Thank you.
All right. It's so hard to predict nowadays because there are so many moving parts. But I'll give you a bet. I think it has peaked, right? And we look forward to an inflation of about 4.5% this year. and we'll be back to where we were originally were, 2 to 4%, midpoint 3% by 2024. Okay, so I think things really are looking up. The future is bright for the Philippines, and let me tell you why I'm optimistic, other than the one you showed earlier, right? I think, of course, we grew by 7.7%, 7.6 last year. We look forward to a 6 to 7% growth rate next year, and then 6.5 to 8 from 2024 to 2028. I'm very optimistic because number one, there are new areas, okay, other than what we had before. Of course, we're going to fix agriculture. Agriculture has always been the laggard in our economy. Last 50 years, laggard. It's in and out of recession. So we'll fix that. And then, of course, there's a new area, mining. We closed mining for the last 10 years. It was recently opened. And so that will be another economic activity that will give us some boost in our GDP, because mining at its peak was giving something like 7% of GDP. When it was closed, it was below 0.5%. So that's another area. And also, I'm very optimistic because of our young population. Okay, young population in an aging world. Wow, that's an asset, right? So we have to just make sure that they are well educated, they get good health care, etc. So, and the other thing is that I think I got this in Davos. The proportion of the world population that's operating under a democracy has been shrinking. Okay, has been shrinking. I think if I'm not mistaken, only 20% of the people of the world are operating under a democracy. So, but there are some noisy democracy and there are some major operating well, right? And if you look at our elections, for example, the most recent election, the president was voted by a majority of the Filipino people. That's the first since
original
Ed
Marcos.
won. Right, since EDSA won, right? That's the first. Because we have so many candidates, and to me, the most minority president was probably FDR. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this president was elected by a big majority, and the transition of power was very smooth. Okay. Compare that to the US. Okay. And with other countries in Latin America, right? So we have a very strong economy, strong fundamentals, and a very stable political system. There will be elections nearby. There will be elections in Singapore, elections in Thailand, elections in Indonesia. So we don't know what will happen, right? So I'm very optimistic. Okay? As explained by Mr. Chua here, okay, I've been with 4 presidents, so I've seen the ups and downs, and I keep telling this is our moment. This is our moment, okay? Moment to shine. We're the fastest growing economy in the region. Let's keep it up, okay? And also the other thing is this president has a very strong private sector support. Private sector support, okay? I've seen that in our field trip, in the state visits abroad, in Davos, okay? I guess in Japan, we'll go to Japan, and I look at the list of people who are accompanying the president. More than 100 Filipino investors, okay, will be coming with him. So he has a very strong. So let's that is the source of my optimism. Okay.
Thanks very much. I think they release inflation figures this coming Monday. So if it has in fact peaked, you can say you heard it here first.
Hasn't peaked, right?
Sorry, yeah. Question, I think, who's next? Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Morning, Secretary. I'm Mike Montero. I represent Concentrix, which is the biggest private employer next only to the Philippine government. We currently directly employ more than 100,000 folks. And obviously being part of the BPO industry, which has committed to this government to increase more than double in the next 6 years. This is really a plea and hoping for a positive comment from your side. Secretary, you occupy an enviable position of not only being co-chair of the FIRB, but you're also the line department head of an agency that we've been having challenges with, which is the BIR. And I'm sure that you have heard about this. We were with the DTI officials yesterday, and they encouraged us to bring this up to you. It's the tax issue that we have with respect to the purchases that locators within the zones have been making and that have been subjected to the VAT. We understand, Secretary, that at the level, again, of the cabinet officials that have deliberated on this issue, there's really no disconnect. It's really the implementation. So the plea, Secretary, is for the FIRB to make a declaration that it has to be the investment priority promotion agencies, i.e. the BOI and the PEZA, that really have the ability and the authority to declare which of our purchases are to be considered as not subject to VAT for being directly and exclusively related to our activities. The last point that I'd like to make, Secretary, is that this is now a near crisis situation. In fact, within our ranks, within the BPO industry, 2 days before Christmas, we were threatened suspension of services by our healthcare providers, only because this issue was unresolved. And it would have been unimaginable for our 1.5 million direct employees not to be enjoying healthcare services. So hopefully, Secretary, this will be an issue that, again, your department and the board can resolve. Thank you very much.
That is a question, that is a plea, not a question. Pala.
I understand the issue. We have formed a technical working group. The BOI has been talking with BIR. In fact, I met them yesterday because this issue might crop up when we go to Japan. So I can promise you there is a solution in sight. Okay.
Secretary, on a related topic, so the BPO industry got that work from home accommodation. They moved from PEZA to BOI. That's correct, right? Yeah. There are other industries that are also PEZA locators, for example, semiconductors. I don't know if there are any semiconductor companies here who are asking, can they avail or can they be given the similar accommodation? The case I've heard is that sometimes as much as 30 or 40% of the people are actually not on the floor. They're office-based and they can work from home, and they're also getting some pressure from those workers, and losing those workers, I guess, would weaken a very important industry for us.
That was brought to my attention too. I think in the case of semiconductor, I think there's a law. You need legislation to effect that. Okay. Unfortunately. Okay.
Next question. Yes, over here. And then Bob, you'll be next. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. So this is a related a follow-up comment to your
Victor, in case some people don't know, you could introduce yourself.
I'm sorry. I'm Victor Paterno, Philippine 7-Eleven. I don't know if how closely you track regional, and I just putting this out there if anybody's seeing the same thing, but we're seeing very strong outperformance of our stores outside Greater Manila. Anywhere from, it ranges from 10 to 20% outperformance. And initially my theory was, okay, net migration outside, but it's too large to be explained by just that. Metro Manila's population wasn't that big. And my theory right now is that the BPO, there's a lot of informal freelance BPO that's going on. I have talked to some people, and they're one of our district managers who run 100 stores said, my entire family is on this freelancing gig. A lot of college students are on this freelancing gig, and I'm part of a group that has 100,000 members. So I wonder if you're seeing that. For this is probably the reason why I'm most optimistic, because it's unseen. But I'm seeing it myself. I don't know if you've seen that. I don't know if the BPO sector has seen that also, but it makes sense given that people are working from home in the US. Why not outsource? So just a comment that if you've seen that also, the regional growth.
You're saying that there's a more economic activity going on. I think I would agree with you. All right. So, but right now, they're no longer limited to working within the PEZA zone, right? Again, we authorize them, they can choose where they want to work. 100%, if they want to register with BOI, they can do so. In fact, I think we extended the date for them to move to the BOI. So you can choose your where under what modality you want to operate. But we encourage them, and I understand that there was a promise that they will increase the BPO employment by 1 million by you heard this from them, right? By the end of the president's term. So we'll keep you to that promise. Okay. Thank you.
Secretary, do we have time for one or two more questions? Yep. Okay. Bob over there.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. My name is Bob Lehman. I'm the president of Amalgamated Investment Bank Corp and EHAP. Quick question. The local capital markets have lagged behind its ASEAN neighbors. The introduction of REITs, I think, has helped spur the PSE. But there's certainly still more room, no? Are there other programs the DOF can see in the horizon that you're contemplating that would improve the resource mobilization and democratize wealth?
I think in terms of legislation, there's enough legislation for that. It's a matter of implementation. As you know, legislation has been passed many years ago and they have lagged behind, right? Now there will be, of course, so we encourage the private sector to participate in this mobilization of capital within the economy. There's a lot of capital. For example, there are new initiatives by the Treasury to float dollar-denominated Treasury bills. There is even a demand for euro-denominated Treasury bills. Okay, so I think we will accelerate the process. I can assure you that. Okay, thank you.
Is there a question here? Yep. Then there's two questions here, and those will be our last ones. Go ahead, Ed.
Secretary, good afternoon. Good morning, sir. Ed Francisco from BDO here. I just wanted to ask, sir, regarding the foreign investor, when you go on the trips, are you seeing them looking to invest? I guess from the banking perspective, I guess Sanjay and others here, we're very resilient. It's one of your slides, but we're not seeing the growth yet from foreign investment. So I guess we're just saying that we're ready to lend. We're looking for projects. So maybe it's also more of a request when you go on the road shows, just tell them the local banking industry is very supportive, and we're looking to fund all these big projects, even the PPP. So it's more of that. Second.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, when we go out, we tell them that the contrast between this administration and the previous administration is that when we came in, the previous administration, there was no list of ready to implement projects, okay, even under PPP arrangement. Now, under this administration, there are at least 100 ready to implement projects because we invested in the preparation of feasibility study, detailed engineering. So we tell this to the foreign investors, and also we keep emphasizing this during the height of the COVID pandemic. We didn't sit idly by and wait for the virus to die down. Okay, we implemented many reforms like Public Service Act. That's a major reform. We opened up telco, airports, toll roads, shipping, full 100% ownership. They can come in. Okay, and also the most recent decision by the Supreme Court, renewable energy. I think we need a lot of investment in that area. Okay, so they are very excited. Okay, and even the steel, I think they will come in because also we opened up mining. Okay, recently opened up mining, and as you can see, the metal prices are quite high, so that must be profitable. So I think they're coming, but not immediately, but they're looking. Thank you.
So Ed is saying when they tell you that, tell them they can borrow from Ed. I think that's what he's saying.
No, I always say we have we have a very stable, well-funded banking system. In fact, we passed the feast law, remember, during the height of the crisis? That was a fallback position, okay? Because a similar bill was passed during the Asian financial crisis, but it was delayed. But nobody availed of the feast law, which means they're really sound, okay?
Over here, Janet and Tricia.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. I'm Janet Hacosalem. I'm the Market Managing Director of Zulig Pharma Corporation. I'm also the Treasurer of the Pharmaceutical Healthcare Association of the Philippines. So earlier you brought up COVID-19. My question actually is related to our ability to get the bivalent vaccines into the country. We've been in coordination with the DOH, hoping that we would be able to support the importation of fresh bivalent vaccines that will help our employees at least be protected against the new variants, that is still floating around. The main limitation we understand really is because the state of calamity has already been rescinded, and we don't believe that it's going to be extended. I don't know if there is an answer to this question, sir, because the response to us by the DOH is the route would be via the CPR, which is marketing authorization that would allow private individuals or corporations to buy vaccines. But the process of a CPR is actually lengthy. And with that, we don't expect that any new vaccines would be arriving within the year. At best would be already early next year. I don't know, again, if you would have an answer to this question, but really our appeal is if we would be given the vehicle to at least acquire vaccines for our own employees within the year, because the worry really is once you get hit with a vaccine, productivity, with the virus, productivity could go down. You need to go into quarantine, and that would affect our businesses.
Thanks, Janet.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know whether this will satisfy your answer. Yes, we did. We confronted that issue. And here are the facts. Right now, there are some 70 million unused vaccines. 70 million, okay, in the Philippines, okay? We vaccinate on average around 10,000 daily, the last few days, only 10,000. Only 10,000 are willing to be vaccinated. We have 70 million vaccines available here. COVAX is going to give us 1.2 million, probably come in maybe next month. So how long would it take COVAX to use up that at that rate, 10,000 daily? Maybe 90 days, right? 100 days. So there's really no urgency to my mind, because as COVAX said, as soon as you finish your the 1.2 million will give you more, because apparently the rest of the world do not really want to be vaccinated. That's the situation. There's a resistance, right? So that's the situation. And on the procurement, I think we incurred something like $2 billion worth of loan, okay, for the vaccine. Right now we have still a balance of 800 million unused, okay? So we can use that to buy the vaccine, okay? And under the terms, we don't, it's the World Bank who will procure for us, or ADB who will procure for us, not the Philippine government. So we're covered all along, okay? So, and you're pretty safe. Look, everybody's not wearing any mask here, okay? Let's not panic, okay? Thank you.
Very last question, Tricia.
Hi, Secretary Diokno. I'm Patty Chilip from Standard Insurance. It's wonderful to see, through, as you said, you were with 4 presidents. It's very comforting to see somebody, running the economy throughout those presidents. I wanted to ask you, the Insurance Code of the Philippines, I think, was drafted in the 1970s. Is there a chance for it to be revised and updated?
Definitely, yes. We have to update the insurance code, yes. And we have to appoint a new one, right?
I'll abbreviate this. I won't ask a question anymore. Secretary, could you share with us maybe a final message, maybe related to the optimism and resilience that you're talking about?
Well, I already told you why I'm optimistic, and there are really good reasons for that. Okay. So this really is our moment. So let's get together. Let's think of invest in the Philippines. And if you make money out of your investment, pay your taxes, right? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Secretary, if you could stay 1 minute, could I ask my board members to join us for a photo? You can sit, Secretary, and have our chairman sit. Can you prepare the sponsors? Ed, you please sit, Ed, and the rest of us will just. Gentlemen, can you stay for a moment? Could I ask our sponsors to come up? I want to apologize. It is all men here. I have a KPI to some of my colleagues to have. I know we're getting one. We do have 3 female board members, but they work harder than these guys. So. Yeah, you're the only flower here. Thank you. Please join me in thanking Secretary Diokno.
Thank you everyone for attending MBC's Face-to-Face with CABSEX, gearing up to beat global recession with DOF Secretary Diokno. Stay up to date on MBC events, activities, and advocacies by following us on social media. We invite you to join us in our upcoming events. Thank you for attending today and stay updated. We have 2 upcoming events, one on February 7, which is our agriculture economic briefing, and one on February 23rd, which is our face-to-face with NEDA Secretary Balisacan. Good day to all, and we look forward to seeing you again in our future events. Thank you and stay safe.